But here's the next segment basically shows everybody what we're complaining about. Everybody that was introduced, except for the poor Godwins, and probably more people saw that. More people saw the Godwins wrestle on TV when they were in the WWF than are watching any of these people on this show currently. So the Godwins were bigger stars, and they were kind of there because they're Mark's friends. But everybody that was introduced is a major wrestling star. Shane McMahon, The Big Show, JBL, Jeff Hardy, Mick Foley, The Godfather, no hose, damn it. Then the Godwins, Michael Cole said, well, they're real life friends of Undertaker.
Yeah, I heard that.
Damn it. Real life. Savio Vega, Rikishi, Kevin Nash, Booker T, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Triple H, and Kane. I think Triple H got the biggest fake crowd pop. I think he did.
There was a fake Shane O'Mac chant.
Yes. Yeah, there was.
All these guys, by the way, being exposed to COVID-19. I kept thinking that the whole time. Like, man, Ric Flair now, too. All these guys are at risk being next to each other, hugging each other, slapping hands with each other.
Well, in all fairness, I'm sure that all these people got tested, but they all had to travel and get there somehow.
I know, that's
right?
what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. I hate to say that my mind went there.
Yeah.
But my mind went there, and then...
Well, anytime I see anybody in public these days, my mind goes there. Like, what the fuck are you doing? But there were 5 times as many stars in the ring at this moment that there were on the entire show. And then, they went to the Undertaker video, and this is where the WWE shines. And we've talked about this. Their production and the people that work in that studio, the editors, the PAs, the production assistants, the researchers, the people that go through and log all that video. You don't just sit down with 5, fucking U-matic cassettes and get all those highlights and in that wonderful order. You have people logging video for fucking ages. The vibe of the video, to encapsulate his career, the action, and then the comments from the stars. Steve Austin may be right. Is Undertaker the best career ever? 30 years, the same gimmick, tweaks of the gimmick, but same name, same gimmick, working for the biggest promotion on earth and a main event guy from day one till the last day. And probably has made more money in aggregate over those 30 years than it has to be the best career ever, doesn't it?
It's up there. What's the best is subjective, obviously.
Well, I mean, best career, that's not saying he's the best wrestler ever.
Yeah, Bruno had a great career. Bruno came in, he was in the main events pretty quickly, made more money than anyone at that time, had more power than anyone at that time.
Yeah, but Bruno only got about, 22 years?
By choice.
30?
By choice, though. I mean, that's the thing. Undertaker, it was a different era, too. He was able to work just a handful of times a year due to the WrestleMania thing, but that's part of it, too. He got to the point where he was such a star that you couldn't wait to see what he was going to do, who he was going to wrestle at WrestleMania every year. That was such a big deal. We get more requests for those matches as watch-alongs, I think, than anything else. Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Triple H, those Undertaker WrestleMania matches really connected with so many fans.
But at any rate, those videos, what they did here, that's where they shine. But also, honestly, they've got all that video because those guys gave you of that era, the 80s and 90s guys gave you more visuals. When they were doing shit, it seemed more visual because they were more visual. Nobody looks like Undertaker anymore. But then they come out of the video and there's Vince in the empty ring and we never saw any of the stars ever again. All they ever did was walk to the ring and nobody ever even spoke. And you never saw them again afterwards.
I thought they were going to toast the Undertaker or something.
There should have been something like a salute, or they're standing on the floor in the background in the shadows and saluting him as he walked. It just disappeared. I mean, if I had traveled in the middle of a pandemic all the way for that thing. Anyway, we got to address it. Vince McMahon had so much makeup on, he looked like one of the Twilight Zone characters where you start pounding on his, in House of Wax, pounding on his face and it's going to crack. And for some reason, his eyebrows resembled Mark Leonard in the episode where he played Spock's father in Star Trek.
Uncle Leo on Seinfeld.
Uncle Leo on Seinfeld, but if Uncle Leo was from the planet Vulcan.
Did you see what Jeremy Bagley tweeted out?
No, I didn't.
I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but it looks like the Undertaker's last act in WWE was the taxidermy Vince.
Oh my God. And I mean, he's smaller and he was being gracious, Vince, but he's aged. It wasn't a commanding performance like the days of old where he commanded your attention and he commanded the ring and you could tell he had full, control of everybody and everything in his palm of his hand, from the cadence of his voice to the way that, it ain't there anymore, is it? He looks like Vince Sr.
No, he looks worse than Vince Sr. And Vince Sr. was younger when he passed away.
But I was about to say, Vince looks now like Vince Sr. looked when he was in his mid-50s. So, I mean, Vince has definitely taken much better care of himself and genetics and whatever the fuck else, but it's finally happening eventually.
He looked really bad, and the makeup was just bizarre looking at his face, and I'd focus on a different thing, like, okay, his eyebrows, what the hell's going on there? And then, is he wearing lipstick? Or is it everything around his lips that make his lips look like, he looked really bizarre. His hair dye, just everything. And his voice is obviously shot. It's been a slow thing that we've seen happen over the years, but at this point, his voice is gone. And I hate to say it, but I keep thinking, this is the guy running the creative show now there. We all think of Vince McMahon. If you don't see him, you think of one thing. But when you see him and you see him like this and he's a shriveled up old man, it didn't have the impact that I think he wanted it to have.
I wish Vince would get more rest. I really do.
Did you see the bags under his eyes? I've never noticed it before, but the makeup made it really pop out, especially when he turned it aside. Massive bags under his eyes.
That's what I'm afraid. I don't know. I hadn't been around him in ages on a regular and personal basis, but I'm afraid he's still trying to keep the same kind of schedule as he did 20 years ago, now that he's in his mid 70s. And I wish he'd just rest and relax every once in a while. It made me feel bad. But anyway, and then the laser show and the extended entrance. Actually, I think they could have got away with just charging us on the pay-per-view or whatever the fuck for this ceremony and let the legends say something, and it would have been better and not as taxing for us to watch as the actual event that preceded this. I always get goosebumps on the entrance. I got goosebumps watching this. I really did. That's one thing I will say. I always liked the NWA style of wrestling, Southern wrestling. It was more raw, had more passion, emotion, or whatever. And of course, I was in the middle of a number of stinkers in my WWF run, managing in matches that didn't, go down on anybody's all-time classics list. But the ones that I was in, especially with Yokozuna with Taker, not only did those matches get over almost all the time, because Taker's matches always got over, but that entrance could not have been replicated anywhere else. And to be in a sold-out NBA arena, and with that, the production crew they even had back then in the late 90s, where they would have the fucking lightning and the music and the PA system would knock birds out of the air. And the lightning would be striking, and the flashes of the lights would go off, and that fucker Mark would start coming down the aisleway, and it was Undertaker. And the spotlights, and you'd see the fucking giant, profile of him, and not profile, but the giant, figure of him as he came through the smoke and the mist and everything. You would get goosebumps standing in the ring. That was fucking cool. That was one of the cooler moments of being involved in the WWF at that point in time. So I got goosebumps again. And he did the promo and gimmick, and it had to be hard to do, too. It was nice verbiage, but it had to be hard. He was milking it, probably because he didn't want to actually come out with it to say, "'Tis now time to let the Undertaker rest in peace." And then he knelt for the hologram of, that's what they call it, right? The hologram of Percy. And Percy's, "Oh, yes." And that was a nice touch. It's a shame they couldn't have done it with people. With
that was my big
takeaway.
That was my biggest takeaway. The fact that this is happening, purportedly the last appearance, the last ride of the Undertaker, whatever you want to call it, and there's no one there. That was and fake crowd noise all throughout this thing. That was my biggest takeaway.
And they had the announcers lay out. They could have laid the fake crowd out. That would have been better. Let the announcers wrap it up at the end and put some type of period on it. But they didn't need the fake crowd. But I think the only reason I can think of for not waiting to do this when people are back in arenas of some description next year, whenever it may be, because it's not like people were clamoring for, let's put the fucking nail in the coffin, no pun intended, on the Taker. It's because he's starting to open up as a person and be on, social media and do appearances as himself and all this other stuff. Do you think that they wanted to get it done before the mystique is lost and put the Undertaker to rest in peace or whatever?
I don't know. I think the mystique isn't what it once was, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. All things considered, he's semi-retired or retired, and he's done a bunch of interviews. I mean, I've seen interviews with him all over the place in the last couple of weeks. You never saw him interviewed ever. All of a sudden, he's talking to everybody on Zoom.
Shut him up.
Yeah.
He's doing cameo.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well,
tell Aunt Betty to rest in peace. What the fuck? Oh, God. Actually, I went up to him one time. Somebody had told me, hey, there's this kid out there, and he's terminally ill, right? And he's a young kid, and Undertaker's his hero. Can you have the picture signed? I said, sure. And so I take it back there. Mark, I said, this kid, and I explain the situation. And he takes it, and he starts to sign it, and he writes R, and then he goes, and he scratched it out. He put something else, made it a B, like best always or whatever, because he realized he was about to write. That's why he signed all his autographs. Rest in peace, the Undertaker, right? But he didn't want to write rest in peace, his terminally ill child. Then he caught it in the nick of time. So anyway, and rest in peace, Survivor Series 2020.
No one will miss you.
Not one thing. This will not be memorialized on any of that. They won't be doing retrospectives of this one years in the future as they do on some of the other ones.
Sometimes I watch something like this and I say, my God, I think they're poisoning my head. The same way some of these big companies poison the environment and poison anyone who uses their chemically, I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying anymore.
Chemically altered products.
That's right.
I'll take it from here, Skippy. If you have been damaged by people putting out shamelessly negligent and treacherous and dangerous products, whether they've poisoned your air or your water, whether you've been the victim of cancer causing Roundup and landscaping devices, whether you have been in some way or another damaged by the defective earplugs that the 3M company gave our military service members, or the opioid addiction from the big pharmaceutical companies pushing these things down our throats, or the Zantac, cancer from Zantac. I'm still a little trepidatious about that one myself with my history of acid problems in my stomach. No matter who's poisoned you or how, there's somebody that can get even and poison them where it hurts, and that's in the wallet.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still to the rest.
Yes, folks, I don't know why he trusts us to make seamless transitions into his spots on these programs, but Stephen P. New is a man that you can trust to go to court and fight for your rights and have you compensated when you've been damaged or harm has been done to you by some of these greedy multinational corporations. At newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084, Stephen and his band of legal ninjas awaits the opportunity to deploy themselves down their ropes under cover of darkness, sneak into these courtrooms, and take by force, if necessary, what should be yours to begin with. They will do it like ninjas in the night. Ninjas in the night. All right. Stephen P. New. newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. If you're getting class action stuff together to sue for the refund of your pay-per-view fee for the Survivor Series, I believe Stephen will be entertaining cases such as that as well this coming week. I'm sure he'll get a lot of calls.